Mayor Joe Carr, Rutherford County, doing another Facebook Live. This one's a little quicker than some of the last, only because we're going to talk about taxes tonight, property taxes, and where we're at with the budget and the budget proposal I'm going to be delivering to the County Commission in the next couple of 3 weeks, to the Budget Committee, and subsequent to that, what we need to do to resolve a bit of a budget mess that we got ourselves in that has accumulated over the last several years. And so, again, we want to welcome your questions and your comments regarding the budget and how we're going to resolve that budget and put Rutherford County on a strong financial footing going forward, so that we don't have to do this again. I hate it. I really hate it. But unfortunately, it's necessary. And I have got a great staff that I've worked with to come up with some of these solutions. And I hope you appreciate the difficulty of this. But nonetheless, we want to be completely transparent. So anything you ask is going to be respected. And we're going to give you the best answer we know how, being as transparent as we know how. So with that, before we get started, though, I want to make a brief announcement in that this past Sunday, Sheriff's Office, along with all of Rutherford County, mourns the death of Jacob Bue. He's a Rutherford County Sheriff Deputy who passed away Sunday morning in a horrible motorcycle accident on the way to, he was off duty, but he was on the way to work. And so Rutherford County flags will be flying at half-mast for the rest of this week in honor of Deputy Officer Bue. And we're going to miss him. Obviously, the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Fitzhugh, will miss him and honor him. Funeral arrangements have yet to be made, but I plead with you, please keep his family in your prayers at this time of a very sudden, tragic, and unfortunate loss, not only to his family, but to his Rutherford County community. Anyway, I wanted to share that bit of news, which is deeply unfortunate. So we'll get right into the meat of the matter. Obviously, we're going to discuss the budget and taxes a little bit. But again, there's no question that that's not fair game. So whether you want to talk about the landfill crisis, the budget, growth, schools, we will certainly, the Forensic Center, we will certainly be hopefully able to accommodate you with the appropriate answer. If not, bear with us and we'll get back to you with that answer. And so with that, Lisa, I've got Lisa Kay with me again and Eric Hennessy helping do questions and answers. Tonight, we're doing a little bit different than we did the last time. Cody York, our OIT director, has linked us up both with YouTube and Facebook. So we're going live with both of those. Isn't that right, Cody?
Yes, sir.
So that's so we're doing both of those. It just makes things a little bit easier. So with that, Lisa, why don't you tell us if we have a question?
Okay, Mayor Carr, we ran out of time last Q&A, which was our first one.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to start with some leftovers.
Perfect. Thank you for reminding me that. That's something we always want to do. Good deal.
Mm-hmm. So this question, you will know this person. This is from Maddie.
Uh-oh. Incoming.
She says, what other avenues were considered before deciding that raising property taxes was the best option?
So we spent, as a lot of you know, we spent an incredible amount of time last year and this year consulting with our delegation, our Tennessee state delegation, our 5 representatives and our 2 state senators, seeking their help with getting us, Rutherford County, on a level playing field with other counties like Williamson, Wilson, Dixon, where they had the authority at the county commission level to implement development taxes or impact fees. Rutherford County, since 2006, has been unable to do that. We've been confined either to the pre-existing development tax, which was capped at $1,500, or migrating to an adequate facilities tax, which we did about 2.5 years ago. But in so doing, we were handcuffed to a solution that was no longer, hadn't worked in quite some time. As a matter of fact, Williamson County has been able to meet, their Williamson County Commission has been able to meet the demands of growth by having this flexibility, as is Wilson County, as is Dixon County. The Rutherford County cities of Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, and Eagleville have this ability. And so all Rutherford County Commission and myself were asking the General Assembly was to allow us the same flexibility that these other counties and that the cities in Rutherford County already have. And unfortunately, we're denied that flexibility. That flexibility, the reason why we're in this $64 million deficit is because we, Rutherford County, have kicked the can of growth down the road so many times for so many years that it has accumulated. And so now here we are in 2023 with an over $64 million deficit, and we just can't afford to kick that can down the road anymore. So we're going to have to deal with it. The only way we have to deal with it, because the Tennessee General Assembly has said this is the only way you're going to deal with it, is to raise property taxes. And so unfortunately, that's where we're at, Maddie, is this is our only recourse.
Okay, and then we had one other one left over.
Yes.
And fasten your seatbelt. This may be out of your wheelhouse. This is from Richard. He says specifically, which types of plastics are we allowed to recycle in Rutherford County?
So my understanding, and Richard, that's a question that I want to really drill down and get probably Bishop Wagner, my solid waste director, who is just really, really good at this kind of thing. But my understanding, any bottle plastics are acceptable. Now, beyond that, I'm unsure, like water bottles, milk jugs, these kind of things. I think certainly those are acceptable, but we're doing now, we're testing out an environment over at the Weekly Lane Recycling Center, which is in Smyrna, where we put everything in one single recycling container, and then it's separated later by a third party. And we're finding that has not only some convenience to the consumer, which would be us who are looking to recycle, but also it has some financial advantages because it allows us, quite honestly, to put more objects in a container. So that may be something I can answer in greater detail at a later date when Bishop Wagner can join us. And we do plan on having Bishop and some of the other directors with some of the departments join us at a later date to drill down and answer some of these specific questions. And I'm sorry if that wasn't specific enough for you, but I don't want to mislead you.
Okay, we have a question coming in from YouTube from Jason. It says, what specific cuts have been made from the budget?
Great question. So in the specific cuts is that all departments, with the exception of first responders, were held to last year's budget. No budget increases in those departments whatsoever, which is what I asked all departments to do. Now, that is the exception for that is for pensions and insurance. However, when you say cuts in the budget, we have to be very, very careful about cutting budgets because remember, Jason, it was Jason, right?
Correct.
Remember, Jason, our county, according to the U.S. Census from 2020 to 2022, is the 42nd fastest growing county in the nation. We are the fastest growing county in Tennessee. In other words, every year, Rutherford County grows by 10,000 new residents or approximately 1,500 new students. So we are stressing our current ability to provide those services that our residents ask for. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to hold the line on any budget increases, thereby, because of the population increase, actually drawing some of those budgets down. So I think we're doing an excellent job. All the budgets came in, for the most part, with one exception or two, came in at my request at no increase in their budget dollars.
Okay, we're going to switch topics here. This is coming in from Jim. Any ideas on Rutherford County employees being able to carry a firearm? With all the mass shootings lately, safety is a big concern.
I'm a Second Amendment proponent. I strongly believe in our right to carry and our right to protect ourselves. As you know, there was recently an incident here in Murfreesboro, or you may not know, there was recently an incident in Murfreesboro where two attackers attacked somebody in their home. They were wearing ski masks. They tasered the dog. They held a child at gunpoint, and the father discharged his firearm appropriately, killing one assailant and injuring another. And that's unfortunate, Jim. But the fact of the matter is I strongly believe that we all have a responsibility to protect our lives, but more importantly, to protect the lives of our families and our loved ones. And sometimes that includes carrying a firearm. I'm not going to get into the specifics of the policies about carrying a firearm on Rutherford County property, as I probably need to consult with our county attorney in that regard to make sure that I don't say anything inappropriate or misleading. So if you'll get back with me on that, I would appreciate that.
Okay, Mayor Carr, we are being asked, how much is the tax increase going to be?
I am proposing at a lift of about 15% plus or minus on the overall property tax increase. So, example, on the average home in Rutherford County right now sells for about $450,000. And I believe that's going to be, I wrote this down, I believe that's going to be about $24 a month increase with regard to what it's going to cost to remove the $64 million deficit and fund our first responders.
Okay, and on that same dealing with the budget, it's also being asked, should I expect a tax increase every year during your term in office? Did you want to elaborate on that? No.
I can elaborate on that. No. What we're trying to do is, again, I know it sounds like I'm overstressing the point, but Rutherford County has never had a $64 million deficit before. Prior to the budget year 22-23, which will conclude on June 30th of this year, Rutherford County's never had a $50 million deficit or a $40 million deficit. And only once previously in the year before, the fiscal year before, we've had a $30 million deficit. So in 1 year, we over doubled Rutherford County's deficit. And so there are a number of things that are in jeopardy unless we get this taken care of. One of those things is our AAA bond rating, which allows us to appropriate the money and borrow the money necessary for building our schools. And there was an occasion, to give you an example of the difference between a AA and a AAA bond rating. There was a period in about 30 days in March where those institutions with a AA bond rating could not even go to market with their bond because of the inflationary pressures and the rising interest rates. And we say the difference in savings on $250 million between AA and AAA is anywhere between $3 and $4 million. So our AAA bond rate is extremely important to this county. It's extremely important to our fiscal well-being. And so we're trying to set the ship right. With this 15% proposed property tax increase, what that'll do was that will completely remove the deficit from our books, and it'll also fund our first responders necessary so we can move forward. So absolutely not. We are doing this now so we won't have to do it in 2, 3, and in 4 years.
Okay, I know you touched on this briefly.
Can I interject a question from me?
Oh,
Uh-oh, Cody wants to interject.
Any idea how much it would cost the county per year for our debt service if we were to lose the AAA bond rate?
Yes, on a $250 million bond. That's if we can place our AA market bond. Okay, so if we go from AAA to AA in this inflationary environment, and with the risk associated with banks defaulting, it creates a stress on less than AAA securities. So if we can even place our bond, it will be anywhere from $3 to $4 million.
And that's on a 250 million. And what's the current
That's
projected
correct.
For the schools? What have they asked for us to bond?
Right at 250. We're doing 156, but then we're going to come in with another bond later for the elementary school. So the fact is that you can do the math. For every $100 million worth of bond debt, you're looking at about 1.5 million savings.
Okay, you had kind of alluded to this during the first Q&A, but this question is, would the tax increase have been as large if Rutherford County would have been able to impose an impact fee on new development.
No, and that's the whole point. That's the point I'm making. That's it. To that questioner, thank you for that clarifying point. We wouldn't be in this mess if we had been able years previous for growth to pay for itself. This whole $64 million deficit is attributed to the growth that Rutherford County has been experiencing these last 4 to 8 years. And the fact of the matter is we've kicked the can down the road about how we're going to pay for this growth. And we can't kick the can anymore. There's no more road for us to kick this can down. We've got to pay for this. Every bit of this is a result of the growth that is required for the expansion of services, which is included but not limited to schools, fire, EMS, law enforcement, solid waste pickup. All of these things require an expansion of service as a result of new people moving into our community.
So I got one here from YouTube. It's more of a clarification. It says, it's from Jason. It says, so what is the total percentage of proposed property tax increase, including the schools and full county budget?
15%, plus or minus. Now we're still working through this, but the target, we're working on a 15%. It may be 16, it may be 14, but we're looking at 15%.
That's for schools and county.
That's 15% for the total county budget. Yes, sir. Schools and the county general fund.
We're getting, this is a hot topic. So Patty.
It should be, because
right.
This is something that I didn't plan on wanting to do. It wasn't my intention when I ran. I had no idea, but you know what? This is where we're at. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be forthright, and we're going to do this together.
Okay, Patty wants to know, can there be further discounts made with retired homeowners besides freezing so we don't price them out?
That's something that County Trustee Ted Beatty and I've talked about, and that is something that we need to take up with the Tennessee General Assembly so they can extend that privilege to Rutherford County in the form of a private act. And that, Patty, you're exactly right. We need to protect our retirees, because the retirees have been investing in this community for so long, and it is they more than any other group that are being overly burdened by this property tax because of growth for which they will receive little or no benefit. And that's wrong. And yet their property taxes are going up to subsidize the home building and real estate community for the development of new subdivisions, which I'm all for, but those new subdivisions, those new developments need to pay for those necessary services that they're needing to be expanded, not you or I in that part of the county that's not seeing the growth.
Okay, Carrie is also chiming in. So instead, the responsibility of the cost of growth is on the backs of homeowners only. We had a large increase not that many years ago.
Well, we only have 2 ways to fund for growth. What was the lady's name? Carrie, we only have, thank you, Lisa. With Carrie we only have 2 ways to fund for growth. The first way, and I've talked about this, but it bears repeating, is the aggregate facilities tax. That is given to Rutherford County by the Tennessee General Assembly, and it is calculated at $1 per square foot of new home construction, not to exceed 10% every 4 years. So right now, the adequate facilities tax is trapped at $1 per square foot. So if the average home is 2,500 square feet, that's $2,500 in adequate facilities tax. However, a metric, currently it costs $9,700 a year to educate every new student. We have 1,500 new students coming into the school system every year. So you can see we're upside down already. So any difference, not just in schools, but now we're talking about law enforcement, fire, EMS, roads, and other things. Every other expansion of service required as a result of that new development or that new home has to be borne by the property taxpayer. We only have 2 ways to pay for growth: adequate facilities tax and property taxes.
Okay, Mayor Carr, this is a pretty long question, and it's coming from Mark. So if you need me to go over anything, just let me know. While the county does not control the water supply, the county does have an interest in the need for adequate water for its citizens. Most of Rutherford County citizens get their drinking water from CUD, Murfreesboro, or Smyrna. The Corps of Engineers has a firm limit on the amount of water pulled out of the East Fork Stones River. We have projections of population for given years. There will be a time when the population outgrows the water availability. Do we know what population the water withdrawal limit will support and how far down the road that is? Is there a plan on meeting that demand?
That's a fascinating question. It's a question that I posed to Roger Goodson just in the last couple of weeks at CUD, who's the president there. And so when Roger and I were discussing this, we talked about the fact that the Corps of Engineers runs Percy Priest, which is the Stones River waterway system. That particular lake, the water that we're able to pull out of that lake is determined by the fact that the Corps identifies that lake as a recreational reservoir. And so we're controlled by the amount of water we can pull out of that lake at winter pool. That means when it's drawn down. And so, yes, that is becoming an issue because it's not just Rutherford County that pulls out of Percy Priest Lake, but some surrounding counties as well. So we have to be very, very careful. I know that when Roger and I were talking about this, the ongoing concern is the growth required by Rutherford County and the limits that the Corps has on what we can pull out of that lake. And also, we're using some what's referred to as gray water for purposes like watering lawns and these kind of things. So there are some recycling things that we can do or conservation things that we can do to extend the life of our community and its growth patterns as it relates to what the Corps allows us to pull out of that lake. On a longer term basis, there have been some very preliminary discussions about how do we access the Cumberland River to our north, because the Cumberland River does not have those same restrictions. So at 30,000 feet flying Mach 10, Roger Goodson and I are having these conversations, and we are trying to think literally downstream 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now about what the water needs of our community are so we can meet the growth demands.
Okay, we're getting a good variety of questions, so people need to keep asking them. This is from Jim. Did the Kittrell Volunteer Department, did the Kittrell Volunteer Fire Department shut down? If so, why?
The Kittrell Volunteer Fire Department shut down as of May 1 because that was like a month before our transition or 2 weeks before our transition of a full-time firefighting professional force out there with the new public safety building.
Okay, I have a question coming in on YouTube, and this one's coming from Jason again. It says, could the county implement a property transfer tax itself without state approval?
No, that is strictly prohibited by the Tennessee General Assembly.
All righty. So this is back to the budget. What are your plans going forward to make sure we do not find ourselves in the same situation in the future? This is having, the need for property tax.
Yeah, and so that's the $64,000 question, $64 million question in this budget, right? The fact of the matter is I'm really proud of the county commission because they're in the process of reviewing building permits, building fees, and associated with development and building costs. And so we're reassessing those to find out if they're in line with our neighboring counties. So we're in the process of doing that. I've asked all departments to give me projections on the growth of those departments so they reflect the growth of the county. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want our county services to grow faster than the county. But at the same time, we want our county services to keep up with the growth of the county. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to let the county services reflect the growth of the county, while at the same time understand that there are economies of efficiency when we do get somewhat larger. And so we're being very efficient. We're being very cost effective. I have to say, as a physical conservative, as a very conservative individual, I think that the Rutherford County is doing an excellent job giving you an excellent value for your tax dollar. I just hate that we're in the point of where my first term, I've got to come to the property taxpayers of Rutherford County and say, hey, we need a 15% increase to balance this budget, because if we don't, we're going to be in a mess. And I can't let that happen.
So Mayor Carr, can you tell us, how does your proposed tax increase line up with other counties?
Oh, wow. Thank you very much, whoever said that. So, you know, I'm always constantly doing what's called comparative analysis. And so if our current tax rate per thousand is $1.61, and so we are going to raise that, if we raise that like 15% raise, or is going to be like to $1.87 or a 26% hike, we are still the lowest property tax rate per thousand of any county in Middle Tennessee. And, you know, to give you an example, Williamson County is at $1.88. Rutherford County, we will be to $1.87. Wilson County is $1.91. Sumner County is $2.62. Davidson County is $2.92. And Murray County is $2.23. So we will still be the lowest in Rutherford County. And so I'm real proud of that, but only marginally so, because I don't think we would have to be here, but we're here and we're going to fix it.
Okay, Catherine is asking this question. Since you've put restrictions on county departments due to the budget deficit, will there be any future overtime freezes, restrictions, or concerns for that in general for this budget year?
No. As a matter of fact, we find that overtime in a lot of situations is advantageous financially to the county, as opposed to hiring a new individual when that individual would receive additional benefits. So there is, within the departments, I've asked all the department heads to find me that overtime that is allowable, but doesn't cross the line where it's now financially of greater benefit to the county to pay for a new hire to fulfill those services. It varies from department to department, but all the departments understand, you know, when necessary, we do have to pay overtime. It's mostly with the first responders because we're a short staff there. It does happen in some other areas, but it's pretty rare. Primarily, it's law enforcement, fire, and EMS that experience the greatest overtime usage. And we have this conversation all the time.
Mayor Carr, Eric, our timekeeper, has alerted me that it's 7:28. So do you want to keep going, or should
we can go. I'll leave that up to you guys. We can go for a few more minutes.
Okay. I just have one other question. How is the 20 plan, and how is that in the process, and would that have helped with the growth issues?
I have no idea what your
20-year plan. I'm sorry. I didn't put the year in there. I didn't put the year. Sorry.
So we're at the conclusion of our 20-year growth plan. As a matter of fact, I was a part with Doug Democracy, Director of Planning and Zoning, and we've put together a steering committee, and we're actually reviewing all that, and we're in the process of recalibrating what our 20-year growth plan is going to look like, and we're going to. What in the world's going on, Cody?
I don't know. A very large truck.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Y'all probably didn't hear it. But yeah, we're actually reevaluating our growth plan and the zoning ordinances that are going to reflect that growth plan. So yeah, that's a timely question because we're involved in that right now, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Sorry for the disruption.
Yeah,
I've got a question coming in from YouTube from Grace that says, you talk about taking garbage out of the county because you think Middle Point isn't the answer. How much more will that add to my taxes?
None.
Okay, we're gonna
because and let me give more detail. And the reason it won't add to your taxes is because that service is going to be offset by the revenue that transfer station is going to generate. So and so at the present time, you know, we are going to continue to use the facilities at Republic, but at some point in time, the disposal of solid waste in Rutherford County, like every other county in the state, will no longer be free. Rutherford County is the only county, by virtue of the host benefit agreement, that doesn't pay for tipping fees. Now, that doesn't mean we don't pay to dispose of our trash. Our disposal, the operation of the convenience centers is an $8 million budget item. That is supported by our property taxes. You're just unaware of it because it's been there since 1995.
Okay, we're getting a question from Brandon. How is Reedville doing with the storm recovery after over a month?
I drove through there this morning. The recovery there is phenomenal, but that doesn't in any way reflect that their lives are back to normal. They are not. The houses are significantly damaged. They're constantly under a repair. The Small Business Administration has an office here on the third floor of the Rutherford County Courthouse, allowing for the process of loans for businesses and people. So if you need to get a loan and you're from Reedville because of the tornado, please come to the third floor and see the Small Business Association. Also, I had a meeting today with the USDA, and they also are willing to lend a hand for individuals and businesses who have been harmed by the tornado. So while the recovery is remarkable and inspiring, especially because we're the volunteer state, it is still going to be months, if not years, until those lives are completely back to normal.
Okay, we got Grace asking another question. It says, seems contrary to our beliefs in this county to tax our way out of a tough problems, including the deficit.
Well, that I understand your point of view, but the fact of the matter is that we have a bare bones budget, and if there are some services that you think would be willing to cut, then I think maybe that's a discussion we're going to have. But I don't believe there are. I have asked all my departments not to come with any budget increases over the previous budget year, and they have done that. And so the fact of the matter is this is a county that grows by 10,000 new residents every year, year over year. It's the 42nd fastest growing county in the nation. It is the fastest growing county in the state. All these additional people are requiring the same services, Grace, that you expect. And I have an obligation to deliver the services to them just like I have to you. But unfortunately, every 10,000 increase in population requires greater amount of service on the part of Rutherford County. And that's just the bottom line.
Okay, Mayor Carr, I forgot to bring my buzzer, but this is the last question for the night. This is from Jason. Would the county government consider a moratorium on residential building until the state approves updating the private charter to allow impact fees?
I know that some members of the county commission are seriously looking at a growth moratorium, not unlike the 6-month moratorium that Bedford County just recently instituted. And it's in an effort to step back, pause, and look and find out, A, is this the kind of growth we want? B, is this the kind of growth we can afford? And C, what does this growth look like going forward as a burden to our current property tax base? Because that's the bottom line. And who is going to pay for this growth? Is this growth going forward going to continue to be paid for by the property taxpayers of Rutherford County? Or should this growth be paid for those individuals, those people moving here who are demanding the expansion of these services? And so that's the challenge. And so I think there are some members of the county commission who are looking at this saying we need a moratorium to do this. Others are saying we're not quite there yet. I think the county commission and the mayor's office are having this conversation, and we'll just have to see what transpires. But it is on the table for discussion. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. So if you have any other questions, then Lisa and Eric, y'all please write those down, and we'll revisit those at our next meeting. I just want to say, as your county mayor, I want to thank you for allowing me to serve. This isn't necessarily a pleasant time. It's certainly a difficult time, but it's a time that we all will get through this together. We had one questioner ask, is this going to be the only tax increase? And the answer is absolutely. If there's anything I can do to avoid this, I just want to get this right one time so we can move forward and grow as a community without having to look over our shoulder about whether or not there are additional tax increases are coming. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your indulgence. And more than anything, I appreciate your prayers. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. Y'all have a blessed evening and good night.
quick end.